From your fryer to the table, it's a quick trip for crispy fries. But how about a crosstown delivery? McCain SureCrisp fries are designed to go from fryer to container to carrier to passenger seat across town during rush hour down a shortcut that wasn't all that short to a doorstep before they hit the table. And that first bite, the crispiness speaks for itself. To the last bite, McCain SureCrisp fries. Go the distance. See how far our fries can take your business at surecrisp.com/delivery.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Want to listen to this episode ad-free? Head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And for an exclusive offer, I am offering you all a free trial to our ITBR professor level, which gives you all of our episodes, all of them unedited, and you can see all of the video footage. And do you know about the ITBR book club? On November 24th, we are actually meeting for the first time in person in Manhattan. We are going to meet at 3:30 p.m. at the Morgan Library and Museum, and we are going to talk about The Personal Librarian. If you are also a Wicked fan, at 12:30 p.m. on the same day, the 24th, a group of us are going to see Wicked at the AMC on 42nd Street in Times Square. So if you want to come and join us, that's where we'll be. Okay, hope I see some of you at the in-person book club at the Morgan Library at 3:30 p.m. Sunday, November 24th. And now, enjoy this episode.
Hey, true crime friends. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime in Academia. I am your host, Mary DePippi. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. I was trying to have an episode out for you guys last Saturday, but I totally underestimated the hecticness of the holidays, and then my sister's birthday is right after, or close right after, so, we did some celebrating for that as well, so just had a lot going on that I thought, I could get all of this done, but of course not. So, such is life. But anyway, I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season, or a wonderful Thanksgiving for those who celebrate. It is the start of holiday season. I haven't really seen any good sales, to be honest. I have been checking, and I don't know, maybe it's because cost of everything is so high that when you see the discount, you're like, does that really even matter? Or I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old. I don't know. I feel like I sound like my parents, and they're like, I remember when milk cost 50 cents. That's how I feel like I'm starting to become. So yeah, I don't know if it's me or if it's the sales, but I feel like they just are not great. But regardless, I'm probably going to start doing my holiday shopping ASAP, because I just like to have it out of the way. I like to take time to wrap. That's my favorite thing to do, is to wrap presents. So, looking forward to that. I'm also working on some new content for you guys. Been doing some work behind the scenes over here, and hopefully I will be able to air those in January. So yeah, we'll see, how that all happens. Doing a lot of some of the basic legwork, but I have some editing and things to do for this new content endeavor that I'm about to embark on for this new year. So again, I'm hoping to have it done for the first episodes of 2025. But we will see. Hopefully I'm not overestimating myself right now. So for this week, we are covering part 2 of the Aileen Wuornos case. If you're just tuning in and are wondering, part 2, where's part 1? Go back in the episode list and you will find the part 1 episode from not last week, but the week before. Also, I am recording on Sunday or Monday of this week. So like 5 days sooner than I normally would record. So, if anything crazy happens this week and I don't mention it, that's why. Because to me, at this point in time, it has not happened yet. But anyway, so like I said, if you were looking for part 1 of this episode, go back and find part 1 for Aileen Wuornos. And, take a listen, catch up on what you've missed. And then, just come back and listen to this episode. I just like to make sure we all have the same information. So last week we talked a lot about Aileen's personal life and her early years, her childhood, and the trauma that she went through. So this week we are getting into the nitty-gritty of Aileen's crimes. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we will get into part 2 of Aileen Wuornos.
Are you currently looking for your next great read and you just don't know where to search? Well, I have a publisher for you. They are called Broadview Press. They're celebrating their 40-year anniversary. Happy anniversary, Broadview. And they are an independent publisher of humanities books. So next month, for Native American Heritage Month, I have on Dr. Andrea Sullivan Clark, and she is going to educate us on indigenous philosophies of Turtle Island. You might wonder what Turtle Island is. And if you're listening and you are in North America, I'm just going to give you a hint. You probably are in Turtle Island territory. So I can't wait for you all to hear more about Native American history and culture, just subjects that we need to learn about and we just don't in our primary school education. So Ways of Being in the World is Andrea's book. I can't wait for more of you to get your hands on it. Also, just in time for the Wicked film, Broadview Press has an edition of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz with the original illustrations. I was talking with Dylan from Broadview Press, and I always love talking with her because she informs me of what new books they're about to release. And guess what? Just in time for spooky season in the fall, they have a vampire literature anthology that collects so many different short stories that explored the vampire myth and just how this origin story of the vampire came to be in our culture. So I hope you get your hands on those books. And Dylan told me there is an exclusive code for all ITBR listeners. You get 20% off all of your Broadview Press orders. Broadviewpress.com. Go choose your books. Type in Ivory Tower in the discount code section and you will get 20% off. Make sure you follow Broadview Press to see all the new books that they are about to publish on Instagram at Broadview Press. Enjoy your reading, everyone.
Just a quick note before we get into it. I pronounced Tyra's name wrong last episode, like the whole episode. Also, her nickname is Ty. So from here on out, we're just going to be using her nickname Ty. Ty Moore was 24 years old when she met a 30-year-old Aileen Wuornos. They met at the Zodiac Bar in South Daytona, where Ty was a regular there. Now, Ty had moved from like the Ohio, Pennsylvania area where she had grown up to find a gay-friendly town. And shockingly, all this time, it was in Florida. Who would have thought? Or at least back in the 80s. Now, Aileen fell in love with Ty instantly. And from pretty much then on, the two became inseparable. The couple spent about 4.5 years of their relationship living from motel room to motel room and just crashing on random friends' couches. And in some cases, they were able to have enough money where they could actually afford to live in like a motor park or trailer park. Now, for a lot of people, that type of unstable, constantly on the go, moving from place to place lifestyle isn't normal or isn't, accepted by a lot of people. But Ty didn't mind living nomadically. What she did mind, though, was Aileen turning to prostitution constantly as their source of income. And that's not to say that Ty wasn't working. In fact, she was working as a housekeeper or a maid during this time and really wanted Aileen to stop and find a more sensible way to make money like she was. But Aileen just didn't want to. Aileen really only saw men as useful as ways to make money and nothing more. And I think that's kind of important. Also, most of her traumas, especially her sexual traumas, come from men. So, I'm just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle, not pieces of the puzzle, but like, you can kind of see because of this, the fact that all of her trauma comes from men and how the only way she's able to use that trauma is to make money off of them. Like, she very much just sees them as money objects, if you will. Not even sex objects, because she doesn't even care about that part. That's just her way to use them to get the money. And just to put the disclaimer, this is my own personal opinion. But I kind of think that her sexual trauma, like the extreme trauma that she experienced as like a child and like in her childhood and teenage years and things like that, I think that and the reason why she constantly turns to prostitution for cash is maybe some way for her, possibly a coping mechanism or a way for her to deal with it. And I know that sounds weird, and again, I've never read anything or came across anything, hence why I said this is my opinion. But I just can't help but feel like her getting money for this is like in some way justification. I don't know. Like I said, I just, for some reason, my brain feels like or thinks that this is her trying to cope with and also thus get something out of, sadly, her sexual trauma. But again, that's just my opinion. The last year and a half of Aileen and Ty's relationship, Aileen's crimes started to become more murderous in nature. Now, before we get into the murders that Aileen committed, I just want to point out that in court, Aileen claimed that all of the men that she killed had attempted to rape her or had actually raped her, and she only killed them in self-defense. I honestly am not entirely sure which it is. I think it is a lot more complicated than that. Obviously not about murder. Murder, like, you should not do that. That's not the complicated part. But her reason why she killed these men, I think, is more complicated than was she acting in self-defense or was this cold-blooded murder. On November 30th, 1989, Aileen murdered her first victim, a man named Richard Charles Mallory, a 51-year-old electronic repair shop owner. Now, Aileen claims that after he had picked her up on the side of the road, while she was working, she claims that he beat, raped, and sodomized her after being driven to an abandoned area, which, again, she claims she agreed to, service him, just, apparently not entirely, didn't go that way, according to her. Now, 2 days later, a deputy sheriff from Volusia County, again, terrible with pronunciation, terrible with math, things we all know. But they found Mallory's car completely abandoned, and then his body in a wooded area on December 13th. He had been shot several times in the torso and chest area, but the two that hit his left lung were the official cause of his death. Now, Ty claims that Aileen told her the day after the murder what she had done, but obviously Ty was very understanding and, obviously didn't want to get Aileen in trouble. They were a couple, they were in love, and sometimes you don't make great decisions when you're in love. Like, help your partner evade murder charges, especially when they're claiming it's in self-defense. But again, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Aileen's next victim was David Andrew Spears, a 47-year-old construction worker in the Winter Garden area. He was declared missing on May 19th, 1990. His body was found naked along the US 19 in Citrus County, and he was shot 6 times in the chest. Police identified the bullets as .22 caliber, most likely coming from a pistol. On May 31st, 1990, Aileen shot and killed 40-year-old part-time rodeo worker Charles Edmund Karskadden. His body was found wrapped in an electric blanket on June 6th. He had been shot 9 times, again, torso, chest area, with a .22 caliber weapon. Witnesses interviewed by police also stated that they saw Aileen around that time driving Charles Edmund's car, and that she had also pawned off one of his guns at a local pawn shop. Peter Abraham Seams, a 65-year-old retired merchant, and it seemed like he was also possibly a missionary at this point in time. He went on a road trip, and I've seen some conflicting sources. Some say he was leaving from Florida to go to either Arkansas or New Jersey. Not sure where, but he was in the Jupiter area at that time, and this was just in that month of June, sometime. The following month, on the 4th of July, actually, his car was found in Orange Springs. Both Ty and Aileen were seen by witnesses abandoning the car, and Eileen's handprints were actually found on the inside of the door handle. Sadly, Peter Seams' body was never found. 50-year-old sausage salesman from Ocala named Troy Eugene Burris was reported missing on July 31st. A few days later, his body was found in a wooded area along State Road 19 in Marion County with 2 gunshot wounds. Charles Richard Humphreys, or Dick Humphreys, a 56-year-old retired U.S. Air Force major, former state child abuse investigator, and former chief of police, was shot 7 times in the head and torso on September 11th. His body was found the next day in Marion, and his car was found in Suwannee County. Lastly, Aileen killed a man named Walter Gino Antonio, a 61-year-old trucker, security guard, and reserve police officer. His almost naked body was found on November 19th near a remote logging road in Dixie County. Aileen shot him 4 times. 5 days later, his car was found in Brevard County. Now, during this time, Ty was very suspicious of what Aileen was doing. Aileen would come home with random new possessions, things that, that she was given from her clients, that she could pawn. And, all of these cars suddenly that she was borrowing. Now, reports of this, because again, we have the fact that we have witnesses involved who have given descriptions of both, not just Aileen, but of Ty as well. And then they have her fingerprint, and with her already being in the system, they can kind of figure out that they're starting to put the pieces together. And, at this point, reports of 2 women are being wanted by the police. Because again, like I said, they've been seen. There's sketches of them now. And of course, one looks like her. So before the end of 1990, Ty decides to flee and move back in with family in PA. On January 9th, 1991, police arrested Aileen at a bar called The Last Resort, ironically, in Port Orange. And they were able to do this based off of an outstanding warrant for one of her aliases. In fact, she was actually using her sister's name, Lori Grody.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
Do you ever think to yourself, wait, how does Andrew know about so many of the newest and current LGBTQ books? Well, my friends at the Gay and Lesbian Review have an amazing magazine. The Gay and Lesbian Review is a bi-monthly magazine, and it's always centered around a theme. So, for example, their November and December issue is called the Gossip Issue. And it features some authors who actually have been on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, like Ignacio Darnad, who runs the Breaking the Gay Code in R Instagram account. And I love that he's looking at Lorca and Dali in his newest article for the Gay and Lesbian Review. There's articles about D.H. Lawrence, about sodomy in the 1770s. Frank Rizzo, who is a theater critic, has an article, and I actually just recorded an episode with him. I can't wait for you all to hear it. We talk and gush about queer theater from the 1970s until the current day. The Gay and Lesbian Review has given me a promo code that I want you all to use. Go to glreview.org, type in promo code ITBR50 when you subscribe, and you will get 50% off your digital or print edition. I get the print edition because I just love to have a physical copy of the magazine. And the Gossip Issue, it's so exciting. My favorite Victorian author, Oscar Wilde, is featured on the cover holding a sunflower. So if you want the newest LGBTQ literature, film, TV, theater recommendations, you need the Gay and Lesbian Review. I hope you enjoy your reading, and please let me know if you are reading the Gay and Lesbian Review, what article you really liked, because I'll shout you out, and I'll even let the editors know, because I know they always want to know what the Ivory Tower Boiler Room audience is reading when they do get a Gay and Lesbian Review subscription. Okay, enjoy your reading. So you all have heard me talk about my friend Christian Garcia's excellent podcast called That Old Gay Classic Cinema. Well, just in time for spooky season, everything fall and gothic, he just had on friend of the show, Joseph Federico, to talk about Dracula. Yes, Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi. So you can now listen to that episode wherever you get your podcast, like Spotify or Apple. And you might have seen I've been releasing some That Old Gay Classic Cinema episodes on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. You can now listen to his premiere episode that I got to talk about The Sound of Music with him, which I really loves that I was on the inaugural episode. Thank you, Christian. Also, we released his Gone with the Wind episode, and we only released part 1. So to listen to part 2, you have to head over to his podcast. So if you love all things classic cinema and you've wondered, wait, what makes some classic cinema just really queer? Like, it actually sometimes is more homoerotic than current contemporary films. You want to listen to Christian's podcast. And he also has a special Wizard of Oz episode that I absolutely fan over. So listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema, Apple, Spotify, and he's on YouTube as well. I hope you all enjoy it.
shortly after police arrested Aileen, they were able to track Ty down as well in Pennsylvania. Ty decided to make a deal. She was going to get Aileen to confess to the murders in exchange for complete immunity. Ty returns to Florida and reaches out to Aileen. Initially, she writes her a letter with the number of the motel that the police have set her up in and to have her call. After a few back and forth phone calls and some very intense conversations, on June 14th, police got their confession. 2 days later, Aileen herself went to the police and confessed. Now, this is a very strange part in Aileen's story, because during this time, obviously her face is plastered all over the media. She's already been dubbed America's first female serial killer. It has gone, she's gone, viral, as the kids say, because she's just everywhere in the media. And a Christian horse breeding couple, the mother's name being Arlene Perel, sees Aileen and hears her story through the news and the newspapers and everything, and decides that she wants to adopt Aileen, and she is successful. She successfully adopts Aileen, a 35-year-old woman. And I'm pretty sure from what I read somewhere that Arlene is not even like that much older than her. She's like maybe a couple years older than Aileen, but it happens. And, a lot of people were very skeptical. A lot of movies were made after her conviction, which we'll get into in a little bit, and thought that she was really just out for the money and the fame. But after I read somewhere that after the Son of Sam, they made some law that basically prisoners can't make money off of, or profit off of any stories that they tell about the crimes that they commit. So some people thought that maybe she was in it for the money, because in that situation, it wouldn't go to Aileen, it could go to her. So, people were very confused about that. But from all of the thousands of dollars she spent calling Aileen multiple times a day and taking her phone calls multiple times a day, she actually proved to be the mother Aileen never had. So as a very strange, weird turn in Aileen's story, it is kind of nice that, again, I don't condone anything she has done. I just wish someone would have shown up for her like this sooner. And I think Ty tried to, but when you're in that type of relationship, or, as, being partners, like one person can't be a parent to the other, it just doesn't work that way. The murder trials began the following year. On January 27th, 1992, Aileen was found guilty of first-degree murder and robbery of Richard Mallory. She was sentenced to death 4 days later. And this was despite the fact that the defense actually had brought into evidence that Mallory had had a past conviction of attempted rape. So, and I'm also intrigued by that too. And obviously because there are other murders involved, I think that's possibly why, or that's probably most likely why they didn't really take that into account, or that conviction didn't matter much, because she then went on to murder 6 other people. I also, again, this is my opinion, but I'm just wondering, did he do what she said he did, and then was it these 6 other men after the fact? Did they do something similar to him that it made her snap? I just feel like I don't know. I'm not saying I don't think he could have been murdered in cold blood by her. It could have just been to rob him, and that, the fact that he had this conviction, was just something that they wanted to use to help them out, and, wound up being completely unrelated. But like I said, I'm I'm curious if, like I said, maybe he attacked her and then she was just triggered, and then that's what went on, like why she went on to kill all those other people. Again, not saying it's right. And who knows? She was probably seeing other people, other clients, during that time, and that she wasn't killing them. So, it comes back to what was it about these guys that she wanted to kill them. So, and again, it mostly just seems like for money, unfortunately. But again, I'm just trying to find another angle here. At least, like I said, that's in researching this, that's how my brain processed that. So I don't know. 2 months later, though, Aileen pled no contest to the murders of David Spears, Troy Burris, or Charles Humphreys. She then submitted separate guilty pleas for Charles Carskadden and Walter Antonio. Now, because Peter Seam's body was never found, she was never officially charged with his murder, despite the fact that she did confess to it. Even after her conviction and sentencing and, guilty pleas and no contest pleas, Aileen maintained that she did this in self-defense. However, though, her statements were later retracted. And unfortunately, in all of her appeals that she would put in for from her attorneys and things like that, and it wasn't even to appeal the conviction, it was to appeal the sentence, of murder, trying to get her a stay of execution. Unfortunately, there were just so many inconsistencies in her stories that, when she recanted her statements of self-defense, they took it. However, though, in one source that I read, it seems that documentarian Nick Broomfield, he's a British documentarian. He was doing some films on her, and in interviews, when the cameras went down, she said to him that she really did kill them in self-defense, and that, she just was sick of being on death row and was just like, I just want to die and be done with it, and just doesn't want to even fight it anymore. So again, it's really hard to know why she committed those murders. Prison and court-appointed psychiatrists diagnosed Aileen with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Now, I don't want to get too in-depth with it just because there are a lot of nuances to each of these diagnoses in general, and they also can be very similar. But I just want to point out a couple of things. Both of these personality disorders can be genetic, and they can also be brought upon by trauma or caused by trauma. It's possible that Aileen's father and grandfather possibly had these. Again, not that that's a genetic link, because obviously the grandfather was on her mother's side, but the fact that they are semi-close, the father being the closest connection to her, if they really did have those, unfortunately undiagnosed, both of them, but it's possible she could have gotten it that way. And it's obviously hard to ignore all the trauma that she experienced that we talked about in episode 1. So, it's hard to say, it's a chicken or the egg kind of conversation as to which applies to her specifically. And it could be a weird combination of all of things. So who knows? But just a quick summary. Symptoms of borderline personality disorder include unstable relationships, intense emotions, fear of abandonment, and impulsivity. Antisocial personality disorder symptoms include deception, aggression, manipulation, and recklessness. So, those are just a few for each of those. I'm going to put links at the bottom of the show notes so you guys can, if you want to take a more in-depth look on those disorders, please feel free to check them out. Like I said, they're just extremely complicated and nuanced, and it's just way too much for an armchair therapist like myself to try and explain. So, like I said, those were just the symptoms that I felt, related to Aileen the most out of the long list of symptoms. So, and it's obvious, with her behavior, and it makes sense. On October 9th, 2002, Aileen was executed by lethal injection. Her last meal was a simple cup of black coffee. And this was probably because she didn't really trust the prison staff and thought they were all out to get her. I'm not saying she's right or wrong. She felt like her food was being messed with. She felt like she couldn't shower when certain people were on staff. So, I mean, who's to say this was happening? But also who's to say that it wasn't? I mean, prison's not exactly a resort, you know? It's kind of the exact opposite. So, wouldn't be surprised if they were messing with her food or, you know, if they were messing with her, I should say, you know. Or it's possible she was making it up, but who knows? So that's what she had, just a simple black cup of coffee and nothing else. Her last words were, quote, "I'd just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back. Like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all, I'll be back," end quote. All right, guys. So that is our Aileen Wuornos series part 2. Don't forget to follow True Crime in Academia on social media at True Crime in Academia on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. If you're someone who prefers an ad-free listening experience, go to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room and become a subscriber today. These episodes drop generally around the same time, sometimes a little bit earlier on Patreon. And like I said, they are completely ad-free. So again, that's patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room, to listen ad-free. And that is all I've got for you guys. So until next week, my loves, or not next week, but the following week, I will see you all later.